Hello guys, and welcome back to the 4th episode of our guided playthrough, not to be confused with the Let's Play as some of you have been asking recently. And with it being a guided playthrough, we do go through each of the episodes step by step, talking about why I'm doing what and how I'm doing it, and hopefully you get a better understanding of the game because of that. In our last episode, we tripled our power production, leaving us with a whopping 1.8 gigawatts of power to play around with. Of course, we are using 1.15 gigawatts of that currently. And a fair part of that is being used by our modular frames factory that we built in the last episode as well. But today we're going to change things up. We've got a lot that we need to get through. So let's start off with what we're going to be doing in today's video. Now, first and foremost, we need to set up an advanced steel production facility that's going to cover your steel beams, your steel pipes, your encased industrial beams, and also our versatile framework, which is going to take some of the modular frames from our last build. Also, we're going to then go on to produce motors, and with that we will also produce rotors, and we won't be storing stators because we don't really need them, if I remember correctly, for anything. So we'll just produce them for the production line, and we will also produce automated wiring. So that will give us the 3 space elevator parts, bearing in mind that we've already got the smart plating running from our starter factory build, which does mean that we're intending to send off phase 2 of project assembly in this episode as well. On top of this, I'd like to touch base on Somersloop, and finally, if we have enough time, we'll touch briefly on expanded power. So that is the plan for today. You can use the timestamps below if you want to skip ahead, but do bear in mind that I will be giving you plenty of tips to all of these as we go through them, and if you want to know my thought process, then you want to watch all of it. Anyway, let's get into it. Our first port of call in today's episode is going to be advanced steel production. We need to unlock this because then we have access to the Mark II miners, which are going to double the potential output of our nodes. And then we've also got the automated wiring that unlocks with this, and obviously encased industrial beams and motors that we're going to be producing today. So let's unlock that first of all, and we're a few items short, but thankfully we do have all of these items now in our storage depots, so we can just grab them. We need some more modular frames and also rotors. With advanced steel production now unlocked, we can build the Mark II miner. However, for this, you'll notice we are going to need encased industrial beams. Now, we can go ahead and automate industrial beams and then we can start using them, but because we want to get ahead as fast as possible, we have 2 other options. We can handcraft from here, but obviously we're going to need a lot more resources in order to do that. Or the other option, if we head over to our awesome sinks, we can grab these coupons, and if we head back to the awesome shop, we can then go over to parts and we can purchase these. Now, 3 coupons may seem a little steep given the expense of producing coupons, but this is going to give us a nice little head start. So we're just going to purchase 1 pile of these for today. Again, you can handcraft them if you want, but that's going to give us enough encased industrial beams to build 10 Mark II miners. With that in mind, we're now going to scout out the position for our build. And I'm also going to grab a load of resources whilst I can so that we can take some, we need power shards actually. So I'm going to hopefully unlock the next one of these. This allows us to research the power slugs. And now I'm going to quickly produce some more power shards while I've got the chance. The next question is, where are we going to build our facility? And really we want to find a spot that has coal, iron, copper, and also limestone nearby. And this particular spot by the estuary would be really good for our steel factory, but given we're going to need more iron, it's probably not the best option for us. The reason for that is we either have to hike up this cliff to get iron, or we have to head all the way over to that spot, because we've only got the single iron node here. And about here will do. Now this is the middle point between the iron that we have over there and also the coal, which is just the other side of those cliffs. For those who want the actual coordinates, we have them here it's minus 1,500 by minus 1,100. But don't worry, you can build wherever you want, providing you're willing to run the logistics of the resources to a particular area. This just makes it easier for us. So what I'm going to do now is get rid of all of the foliage here. This is going to take me 10 minutes or so. So I'm just going to jump ahead. You've seen me do that. And then we're going to start prepping our foundations. Now, a note on the foundations. You're probably wondering how big this build is going to be. Now, I'm on Satisfactory tools. I've already prepared this factory, and my intention was to make as many round numbers when it comes to the facilities buildables as possible. So we have motors and automated wiring assemblers, and unfortunately this build, because I've removed the rotors, has screwed up a little bit, but we're going to run with it anyway. And over here we're going to produce 5 versatile framework, 6 encased industrial beams, 12 steel beams, 12 steel pipes. If you're wondering how I go about choosing the amount of resources that I need for a factory, I have done a video on that recently, so I do recommend checking that. I'll put it in the description below. And the same, if you're wondering how to use Satisfactory tools, I'll put a video in the description below for that as well, so that you can grab it and work it out yourself. But with this, these are all pretty simple numbers. We've got a few overclocks and underclocks, which we'll talk about briefly. But the basic gist is we're producing, as we unlock items in Satisfactory, we only need a small amount of those items in order to proceed. So I produce a small amount, maybe 1 buildable or 2 buildables worth at 100%. So as you can see here, we're just doing 5 versatile framework per minute, and that will be sent to storage for the space elevator. Same with encased industrial beams, that will be sent to storage. And as we need more, we will redo another factory, because by that point we'll probably have access to better buildables, which will produce more resources, or we'll have better recipes unlocked. Even though, generally speaking, for this playthrough, this guided playthrough, we're going to try and stick to vanilla where possible. Though if we had access to screw recipes, that would be really useful about now, as that would greatly reduce the size of this build. But I want to try and keep vanilla for at least the next few videos, so that everyone can take part. As for the size of this build, it really comes down to experience and knowing how much you can fit within a grid. It's more often than not a guesstimate, but we can see here in the buildables section, we've got 8 assemblers, 26 constructors, 2 foundries and 8 smelters. And over here we also have 5 assemblers, 14 constructors, 6 foundries and 2 smelters. So this is quite a big early game build. As such, I'm going to go larger rather than smaller. So for this build, we will probably do a wide build of about 7 of our 4x4 foundation blueprints to start off, and we'll probably go 5 deep. And we are going to use logistic floors for this, but we'll talk about that more later. Anyway, I'm going to clear all of this, and then I'm going to prep the foundations, and then from there we can start with the layout. Okay, we are ready to get started with our build. Obviously, if we need to expand this out later, we can. One thing that I wanted to show you before I started building the footprint was actually how I connect blueprints to the grid, and that really comes down to using a keystone foundation. Now, a keystone foundation is just me being fancy. It's just a foundation that's on the grid. So we're going to hold control, and now we can see that the foundation is aligned with the grid. And you want to place your build, your lower floor, so that it is at the highest point of the terrain. That way you're not going to, if we just run that across, we're not going to have any terrain clipping through. Though we do have this little valley, perhaps we could do the the logistics floor underneath. Yeah, we might do that for this. But anyway, from here we're going to grab our foundation, and you can see how we snap to the edge, but if we go to blueprint mode, it doesn't do anything. And that's because what we're trying to snap it to isn't a blueprint. The problem here is that because it's a 2-meter foundation versus our 4-meter, that it's only snapping halfway. So what we'll have to do with this, I'm going to use H to nudge it so that it's in line with this foundation. Then we're going to place that. And then from here, I'm going to enter the blueprint mode by pressing R, and we can then snap the blueprint on top of the previous one. And we can delete the blueprint underneath by making sure when we're in delete mode that we have the dismantle blueprint mode option selected. So once you've used your keystone foundation, you can delete it. And then from here, I'm going to build out the foundations. So I'll be right back after this. I have forgotten one really important thing. I just saw the dismantle crate over here. If you are building, once you have the dimensional depot unlocked, it will prioritize resources from your depot over items in your inventory. This can be useful. However, if you've got a full inventory and then you've been building with the taking from depot first, when you delete all of these, because you have a full inventory, you're going to have a spam of dismantle crates along the map. So when you are building, I highly recommend you select take from inventory before depot. And that will just prioritize the using of resources from your inventory first and foremost. Anyway, I'll finish this off and we'll get on to the next section. And here we are. This is actually a pretty good start. I've done, I think, 6 foundations across. In fact, it looks like a square. Maybe I've done 6 blueprints across and 6 up. But I've decided against using the floor beneath for logistics. We're in fact going to use this as the logistics floor. So all of our resources are going to run along here. And then we're going to place another floor now above this that is going to be specifically for the buildables. And we want the next floor to, well, the logistics floor to be probably, yeah, I think 2 4-meter foundations high, and then we'll have the 2-meter there. That gives us 6 meters of height to play around with, which is going to make it feel just about right and not too cramped, which should be good for showing this off as well. So I'm going to now do the top floor, and then once we're done, we'll start getting the resources into here, and then we'll talk about blueprints. And we're back. Thankfully, we already have the power nearby, so we can work with that. But what we need to do now is to bring all of the resources onto this floor here. This is our logistics floor. It's got a good amount of space, and we're just going to run our foundations out all the way in the direction that we're getting the resources. So I'm going to grab the iron from over there. We've got copper and limestone over here, which we can grab. And then in the opposite direction, we're going to also do the same, another conveyor bus over to the cliffside where we will bring all of our coal and maybe the iron from over there as well over to this factory. So I'm going to do that really quickly, and then we'll talk about busing. Okay, we have placed our Mark II miners, and for this you can see we're producing 120 per minute. We actually need a total of 330, I think. So we'll split between the 2 of these, which is 165 each. Obviously we can overclock this and get more later should we wish. And then from here we have a slight issue in that our max belt speed is 270 per minute. So we're going to have to merge and throttle the lines. So for that, we're going to place a merger, and we're also going to place next to this a splitter. And we're going to make sure it's the fastest speed just because we can. Then from here, we should have this line, which will be prioritized as 270. And then this one is going to be our 60 line. And we're throttling it using a Mark I belt. So all the resources will come here. And because this is producing 135, 60 will be on here and the rest will head over to here. So we've got our 2 belts, and we're now going to run this back to the base up via there. Then I'm going to grab all the iron that we need as well. Now you can clean this up however you want. You can decorate it should you wish. I'm probably going to add some supports there, but basically that is all we've done. We've connected it to the main bus line. I'm just going to send the resources now all the way along there. And here we are. We have the 270 iron from the coal area. We also have all of the coal coming along from the right-hand side. And then on the left, we have the extra iron that we're going to need. And in the top left-hand corner, we have our copper and limestone. And as you can see, we're not doing anything special. We're just bringing it in to the logistics floor. The logistics floor isn't designed necessarily to be pretty. It's just so that we can run the logistics and keep the top floor clear from everything else, which you'll see shortly. Now, as this build is going to have a lot of buildables in it, I am going to create some really basic blueprints. They're not going to be anything special, just, for example, 4 constructors in a line, or maybe a set of 8 of them, just so that I can speed up this build. But you will have an overview of the whole build afterwards, so you can see how we've done it, along with the various numbers. For this, I am going to be using 4 blueprints. The first will be a standard 3 smelter blueprint. I'm not adding any of the inputs or outputs because we are using the logistics floor. We've also got a 3 constructor blueprint, again following the same principles. There's also our assembler blueprint. And finally, our most advanced blueprint, which is the foundry system for smelting the coal and iron. This particular blueprint uses 6 foundries and consumes 270 iron ore and 270 coal to produce 270 steel per minute. The system is quite simple once you know how, but I'm not going to show how to do it in this video. If you want to know how to build this particular blueprint, do check out my guide on basic steel layouts, and we cover building this one in there, but we'll only be using it once for this build. Right, I'm going to clear all this and we're going to get started. So we are now ready to get started building, and the first thing that we're going to want to do is have some way of accessing the lower level. So I'm going to just very quickly add a ramp downwards. With that out the way, the first thing that we're going to get started on is the steel section. So this is going to be over here. We're going to grab first and foremost our steel foundry blueprint, and we're going to place this so that it's facing up the build. And right at the beginning, we're going to want to place 1 lift floor hole right against the merger and 1 behind that. And we're just going to grab our Mark III conveyors and run them up to the 2 top floors. So this one will be for the coal, and this section of the manifold will be for the iron. The idea is that the steel will leave on the bottom floor. So we will also place, while we're at it, a conveyor floor hole over here and another Mark III conveyor lift. Also need to make sure that I've got the recipes selected. Then underneath, we're going to have to connect our resources. So this one here is for the iron, and this one for the coal. And there we go. That is the steel beams, or steel ingots sorted. And then we're going to take the steel down, and we can get started on the rest of the steel layout. Now, the first thing that we're going to want to do is place some constructors. So I'll use my blueprint for that. We're going to grab a set of 3. I think we need a total of 5 constructors for this. So what I might do is place 2 of these together. Then we'll just delete the end one. And from here, we will have the steel pipe, the steel beam, and we'll also have the other 3 as steel beams as well. But we are going to have to change the clock speed. So for this one, it needs to be, if I remember rightly, 12 per minute, which is 80% clock speed. And then we've got 2 which are going to be running at 100% clock speed, and 1 here that is going to be running a slight overclock, 120, to produce the 18 steel beams per minute that we are going to need for the encased industrial beams. Next, add the floor holes just in front, and we are going to use a manifold system for this. I won't worry too much about the efficiencies. Once it's running, it will continue to run at max speed. And we're also going to do the outputs on the other side. However, these 2 are going to be merged first. Now, the steel pipe and the first of the steel beams, these are going to be sent straight to storage, and we will add another dimensional depot to the top of their storage containers, and we can run that wherever we want. In fact, I'll probably run them straight up to here. I don't think I have any Mercer spheres just yet, but we would add them on top. And of course, you can add a smart splitter if you wish, so that we send the excess to the sink. Next, we're going to want to do the concrete. We're going to need the concrete for the encased industrial beams. So for that, we are going to have to grab the concrete from over the top left-hand side. We will run that along to, along here should be fine. So these three constructors are going to be set to concrete, and we're going to have to underclock these. If I remember rightly, it was 2.4 constructors worth. So because we've got 3, we can divide the 2.4 by 3, and that gives us 0.8, which is an 80% downclock or underclock for all 3 of these. So we can just type that in and copy and paste this to each of these. And then we just need to grab the limestone from over there and bring it across to here. At which point the concrete will then merge with the steel beams in an assembler. If I remember rightly, it's just a single assembler, and we will place that assembler just here. And then we can send that also to storage. And once we've got some more Mercer spheres, we will add them to this. We don't have to have all of the logistics on the lower floor. For short sections like this, I just prefer to run it, but hopefully this will run pretty smoothly. By the way, when you are connecting things up, make sure that you are listening for the little bleep. That's connected. If you don't hear that, it might not be connected, and you'll have to connect via conveyor to the buildable next to it. But with that all placed, I'm going to go underneath the facility now, and we are going to connect all of the other sections together. All right, let's place our splitters. We'll start from the other side, actually. So this is going to be taking the steel and producing the steel pipes. We're going to have it flush against the elevator. Then we're going to run this manifold in a line to what will be the left of the build. Now that all of the steel constructors have got the steel heading to them, we need to sort out the outputs. So this is for the steel pipes, and this is for the steel beams that are going to storage. I'm going to just place them right at the top, so it's going to be overhead, which means we can use the lower floor for any other resources. Just keeps them out of the way. And I'll do that for any output resource. So for example, we don't need one for the assembler. Next, we have the 3 constructors for limestone. So we're going to run the limestone across here. So we will place the splitter just in front like the others. And if you wanted to, you could load balance this, but I'm not too concerned about that. This will be running at full tilt, hopefully constantly. Oh, subconsciously I still built myself a load balancer. Never mind. We will remove that and rebuild it. In fact, for a long distance like that, it might be better for us to run it along here. I know this is clipping, but it's not actually clipping through the top, so I'm quite happy with that. It just means we'll be able to run this along the top without any interference from anything below. Right to that, and then lift it up, then run that all across. And now that we've got the concrete done, we're going to do the output line. Now for this, we have the assembler's input in line with the constructor's outputs. So what we can do is maybe place these, I might be mistaken here. Yeah, it looks like I am. I was gonna say we can place these directly on top, but it's not going to be in line. So we will turn this into this direction. So it's going back on itself. And then from there, I'm going to grab the merger, and we're going to run it directly off of those elevators. And we'll run it straight into here. Now, because this is slightly off, the only way that we're going to be able to do this is if we connect a merger directly onto it and then run these into there. But it will still work perfectly. So now that we've got the concrete sent to the assembler, we're going to have to grab the steel beams. And I'm just going to place this on the very top. We're going to use the straight build mode with a little bit of luck to run it around the top there. Lovely. Last but not least, we have the versatile framework steel beams, but we're going to worry about that a little later. So let's get on top of the build and start working on the next segment, which will be the versatile frameworks, actually. So for the versatile framework, we are going to need to set up a smelter section. For this, I'm going to place it more or less in line with the start of the foundries. And I'm gonna run it just there. We'll delete one of these because we only need 2 of them. These are going to both be producing iron. Now with this, unfortunately, we need to split a fair amount of the iron. It's like a weird split because we've got 26.25 ingots going to one and 33.75 to the other. So rather than trying to work out how to do that, I'm just going to overclock one and underclock one. So this one we can underclock. So we want it to be 26.25. And then the other one we're going to overclock to 33.75. Now the overclocked one needs to go to a constructor which is going to produce the iron plates. So I'm going to run it straight up, and I will run it to the same position as our steel constructors. However, there's going to be a block in between them. This one will also be slightly overclocked to 112.5. You know what? I'm going to move this across, and the reason for that is this is directly in the center, so we can just run it across the top. I can just do this here so we can show you. I'm just going to snap this to the top section. Same with this one. And then we're going to run the line all the way across. Also, it only needs to be a Mark 1 line, but where possible, I tend to do the fastest belt unless I'm running short on that resource. On the next section, we're going to need some iron rods. So we'll place 2 more of these in line. And these are going to be clocked at, we've got 1.75, so 87.5% clock speed. Now with all of these builds that we're doing, the aim for you guys isn't necessarily to follow them exactly, but it's to give you an idea as to different techniques and how I go about building so that you can implement that into your save should you wish. And a few people have been asking about whether I'm going to make this save available, and the plan is to absolutely allow you guys to download this save should you wish, but I want to get a little bit further into the save first and foremost. Maybe set up trains, and with this going straight to a screw constructor, I'm going to overclock this one as well to 112.5%, which means it takes the 11.25. And then we will connect these 2 together to become reinforced iron plates. Again, we will give you a bird's eye view showing you what each of these do at the end of this build layout, just so that it'll be easy for you to copy should you wish to. So this is producing reinforced iron plates, and it needs to be set to 75% clock speed. And for this, we can run the screws Ooh, well, that's a pain. So we will bring, I think, the screws down like so. And then we're going to have to do something with the iron plates, and I think for that we will run it underneath this as well. So with straight mode, we'll drop down and it looks all clear to me. There we are, we have our reinforced iron plates being produced as well. Now this system may be a little bit more complicated when it comes to sorting out the logistics, but it just gives so much more freedom to walk about your build, and it's one of my favorite ways of doing factory lines, especially with larger factories. You can have single manifolds that span the length of the factory, but you have plenty of walking room to walk amongst it because of the logistics floor below. So we have our reinforced iron plates, we have the encased industrial beams. What we need to do next is to send the 15 rods per minute, combine that with the reinforced iron plates from here, and that will be to produce the versatile framework. Oh wait, I'm jumping ahead. This is for the modular frames. Then we'll grab the reinforced iron plates from over here, and I'm bringing these down so that we can grab the modular frames from the assembler just above us. We can just take it down without any interference. This is going to have to go to the versatile framework factory, and I think for that I will probably send it back. Oh wait, before I forget, I've got the iron to do here. Now when you need to do a particularly tight corner, you can use the splitters like I've just done there, so that you have a single 1 meter increment turn. Now in this particular circumstance, we're bringing the iron down to here and we want to go to this splitter. You'll see that we can't quite make it. The turn is just a touch too wide due to where this comes out. However, we can get a straight line if we want. To do that, I'm just going to place a splitter directly against the output of the conveyor elevator, and then we're just going to run the line straight into the splitter here, and you can see it's straight. Next, I need to connect the iron from over there with this, and then we need to set up the versatile framework assembler. Now before we get too far ahead with the versatile framework, I do want to make sure that we've got the modular frame selected, and this is going to have to be overclocked by 25% as well. And now that that's done, we can add another assembler. Yeah, let's just place it next to it again, and we're going to run the modular frames from next door round to there. And we also need the steel beams, which we had earlier placed, and we're just going to run them all the way along to the input over here. And there we go, we have our versatile framework factory now done. And that one, like the others, is going to go to storage. Now you could add a dimensional depot on top of the storage for this. However, because we're going to be transporting 1,000 versatile framework to the space elevator, there isn't much point. So in this circumstance, I wouldn't worry about adding a dimensional depot if you have the option to do that. Got a feeling these are all a little bit too close. Well, no, this one's just a bit too close. So I'm going to copy and paste this, and we'll push it back so that they're each a foundation apart, and that will allow us to do the overflow line that we've demonstrated in, I think it was the second episode of the guided playthrough. So we'll do that really quickly. Just send everything up, and then we can merge that all along to go to an awesome sync. All that's left to do with this facility now should be to turn it on. So we're going to have to add some power, and then I'll show you it running, and afterwards we'll get started on the motor factory. Fantastic, everything is now running. We have the steel being produced in the bottom right with these 6 foundries, and the iron just to the left of that from those 2 smelters. In front of the steel, we have our steel pipe constructor, our steel beam constructor, which if I remember rightly is underclocked to 80%. Then we have our 2 steel beam constructors. Those 2 constructors are for the versatile framework, and to the left of that we have an overclocked constructor, which is sending the steel beams to the encased industrial beam factory, which is the assembler just up above it. But before then, we also have our 3 constructors producing the concrete, which is sending the concrete to that assembler as well. And then to the left of all that, we have the 3 constructors, the first one being overclocked, producing the iron plates, and then to the left of that, the 2 constructors producing iron rods. In front of the middle constructor, we have a screw constructor, and the screws are heading towards the first assembler, along with the iron plates from the constructor to the right of it to produce the reinforced iron plates. The reinforced iron plates and the iron rods from the constructor to the left of the 3 are then going to the next assembler along to produce the modular frames. And then the modular frames, along with the steel beams that we merged earlier, are going to the assembler at the top, producing the versatile framework. And as you can see, the logistics floor is filled with with all the resources going to and from the machinery, but it keeps the rest of the factory floor clear. And finally, all of those end resources are going along to their storage. Some of them have the dimensional depots above them, but there is also the smart overflow line, which is sending any excess items, or will do once it's fully running and all the storage containers filled, to the sink. With that done, let's get started on the motors. Now, the motor facility is going to require a bit more space, so I've decided to push the blueprint foundations back so that we have a little bit more room. We can probably get away with leaving this section free, and we'll just make use of that for some of the constructors. So now that we've done that, let's get started. Now for this build, I am going to have to bring some more iron across, but don't worry, we've got plenty of iron there. We are going to start off with building a steel foundry. We will place that just in line once again with the smelters. This time it's a little bit different as it's going to be facing forwards, and we will have both of the inputs being fed from below. So this one will be for the coal and this one will be for the excess iron. In front of here, we're going to need 2 constructors. These are going to be producing the steel pipes, if I remember rightly, and they're going to run at a underclock 93.75. Now for this, with it being quite close, I think we'll just run the logistics above. And I should also mention that the foundry is going to be overclocked by a total of 25% as well. So we've got our steel pipes and we've got our steel foundry. We don't need to worry about the pipes until later on now. We're going to merge them first of all, and then we'll send them down. For the next segment, we are going to need some smelters. So we will grab the blueprint here. We're going to have to place 3 of these, and these will be taking the copper that we were producing, well, have sent from this miner here. We will be producing the copper from that. Now these 3 smelters are going to be running at a total of 333% clock speed. So one of these is going to have to be overclocked to 133.3, and then all of this copper is going to be sent in front to be turned into wire. So we'll grab our blueprint here of our constructors, and we're going to need 6 of these, well 7, but we'll do that in a moment. Just making sure we've got space to run that. Fantastic. And we are going to do the same on the opposite side, like so, and then we'll add a single constructor just at the end. Now this constructor will have to have a splitter outside of it, and the rest of these will have mergers leading up the grid. We're going to do this above ground just so that we're not getting confused, and also with this segment here, we don't want to be colliding. One side is going to be merged. We're going to need 100 wire on each line. So it's a nice even split. So we have these 3 running at 100% clock speed producing the wire. And it's going to be the same on the opposite side as well. And then the end constructor is going to be set to 66.667. So it's going to be producing 20, and 10 wire will be split to the right and 10 to the left. Now that we have the wire constructors set up, we're going to have the first half, that's here, going to some cable constructors. So we'll take this under, and then we will place 2 more constructors, and we can do that just over these 2. Now we need a total of 50 cable. So these are all both going to be underclocked to 83.33% clock speed. And the output of these constructors and also the stators, which we will do shortly, will be going to become the automated wiring. But we don't need to worry about that just yet. Now, in order to produce the stators, we are going to have to run some assemblers. We need 2.5. So we will place them here. And they are going to be combining the steel pipes that we produced a moment ago over here and the rest of the wire to produce those stators. Now, these stators do need the equivalent of 2.5 assemblers to run. So it would be beneficial, in fact, if we start from the center here, to have 3 rather than overclocking, because otherwise we're going to be expending a lot more power than we actually need to. And because we have our wire, oh, so close. Almost in line with this, what we can do is set up a load balancer. Then here it doesn't want to go, but what we can do is use our floor holes. We place them in the same spot, even though we've got these slightly separated. We know that that's going to be connected, and so will that. So we can then run these straight into one another, like so. Now at this point we do need to take the steel pipes across to here. So we're going to drop down like before, do the rest of this. So these are for the steel pipes. Now I'm just very quickly correcting this section of the factory. I'm going to actually grab the other iron as well, but I will connect these up to their resources and then we'll get back to doing the section over there. So give me 2 moments. So I have sorted out the lines. It was actually the copper that I needed to bring over, not the iron, but I have done the iron as well. And from here, we're now adding our wire to the cable constructors. So I'm just going to turn that around and we will add a splitter like so, and that's going to split between the 2 of them. Okay, so we have the cable now being produced, and that is unfortunate. It's all right. We can run this below at first and lift it up shortly. Or we could just run it below the whole time, maybe. Right, so now we have our cable constructors. We've got the cable coming out this end, and that is going to be sent to our versatile framework factory. So I'm going to add a merger over here. Not sure I'm happy with that. So I'm going to bring this down under all of this. And we can add the merger to the cable constructor. They'll feed into one another. And this will be the output for 50 cable. So now we need to get back upstairs. So now let's sort out the stators. Now the stators, as I mentioned, are 250% clock speed, but we need only 2.5 stators per minute to go to the automated wiring, which means one of them can be underclocked while the other 2 run at 100% clock speed. And these will be sent to the motor facility shortly. Now with the 2.5 stators in this assembler, we can combine it with the 50 cable to produce our versatile framework. And what I'm going to do with this, I think we're just going to run that across from here. Totally unplanned, but I think we can make it work. A smart splitter. And then we'll have our storage here. This will be for our automated wiring. And I'll place 1 in front of this. And this can be for our motors, because we only need 1 of them. Now I try in my builds to have the storage all in the same area. The reason for that is you don't have to run around the rest of the build if you know where everything is and it's all in one spot. Had I planned this better, had I actually built this beforehand, I would have swapped it so that this corner was closest to our factory over there, just to give us a little bit more space to play around with. But it's fine. I'm quite happy with what we've got here. And we'll also add 1 of these depots on top for the motors, and then the automated wiring and the versatile framework we don't really need the dimensional depots for. This last assembler is just producing motors at 100% clock speed. We will do the rotors for this shortly, but I just want to have this all set up. We will take the stators and the cable now. So there are the cable and the single stator line. How about we pull this forward to about here? The reason that I'm doing that is it just saves me having to joggle the lines underneath if we can connect it directly. Like, oh, you are joking. It's just out. And the problem is, if we were to lift it up, it's not actually at the right height. So we'll bring this forwards a little bit more. And there we are. That is the versatile framework now done. And the last thing for us to do is to set up the motor line. Now for the motors, we've already done the stators here. These can be merged and sent to the motor section. Let's do that now. But we are going to have to do the rotors as well, which is where our next iron line comes in. So for this, we're going to head right to the start of the facility again. And from here, we're going to have to place 4 smelters. So we might as well grab our blueprint here. We're going to place them in line once again with the rest of the smelters. It just keeps a bit of uniformity to our builds. And then we'll add an extra one just to the side. From this point, we need to clock these at a total of 3.75. So we're going to take 3.75, divide that by 4. That gives us 93.75% clock speed. And I'll just show you really quickly on Satisfactory tools so you can see why I've done that again, just so that you're not wondering where I'm getting all these weird and wonderful numbers from. Here we have the steel foundry that we've just done with the steel pipes, the stators. Then we have the copper, the wire, cable, the automated wiring. And now we're doing the motor line. We've already done the motors and the stators. So we have our 3.75 smelters. And as I just mentioned, 3.75 divided by 4 is, I've forgotten. What was it? 93.75. So we're going to set all of these to that. And for some reason at the moment, I've noticed that the copy and paste function isn't working all the time. Sometimes you have to do it twice. So just be aware of that whilst you're placing these. We're then going to merge all of these together. I definitely feel I've put these off, haven't I? Wrong position. No, they're the same. Right, never mind. We will merge these all together. I'm going to face them to the left of the grid. And then from here, these will go down where they will head to the next section, which is going to be the iron rods. Now I've just redone these. I had to move them half a meter over just so that the 4th smelter was in line, because this is where we're going to be adding our next constructor section. So the constructors here are going to be fed from a manifold, just like we did earlier with the wire, except we need 8 constructors for this. It's going to be along there. We want the center to be over the foundations, like so, so that we can run our splitters up through here. And there'll be another one just there. Now these are going to be producing our iron rods. Now for this, we're going to do one side that is going to produce the screws, which will be actually the left-hand side. So these are going to be clocked at, well, we'll need a total of 62.5 iron rods per minute going across to this one. So we're going to have to overclock this ever so slightly. So we've got between the 4 of these, 60 if they're running at 100%, and we need 62.5. So let's do 17.5 here. So it's a slight overclock, and then this side is going to be a slight underclock. We need a total of 50, and we have 45, 50. Now we could do balancing. We could have done a 3-to-1 split and removed one of these, but I don't want to bother with that. So we have on this side all of our iron rods, which are going to go to become the rotors. So we're going to merge them all along this line and then send them down. And then on the other side, we're going to merge all of these, and then all of the rods on this side are going to be sent to 6.25 constructors to produce screws. Now, if you have one of the alternate recipes for screws, you may be able to skip out this segment or even produce the screws with a lot more ease. But because we're sticking with the vanilla recipes as much as possible for this, we're just going to go ahead and build a line of 6 constructors. I think we can fit them in here, but it'll be a little bit tight. We'll do 6 constructors and we'll overclock one of these to 125%. Once again, we're going to run all of the resources under and then along a manifold to these. And then we're going to have to use a Mark III belt to to take the screws across to 2.5 rotor assemblers. I'm not going to do the logistics under the floor just yet for these. We can do that afterwards. We'll sort out those assemblers first. And given that we already have the motor assembler in the top right, we can do the rotors, I should think, just about here. My only concern is that we may have the resources for the copper and the limestone in the way. So what we might have to do is adjust that, but we'll find out shortly enough. Once again, we will merge on the output side. Hey, this works out pretty well, actually. Who'd have thought that I hadn't actually planned this out? We can run it to here, where we have our stators, and we can run that all the way across to the motor assembler here. With that done, I'm going to quickly go underneath and merge all these together and send them to our assemblers down here. And as expected, this is all in the wrong position. So we will adjust that now, but let's start off with these. We're just going to add the outputs and we'll add the mergers directly onto here. In fact, let's have the merger up in this area. That's going to give us a little bit more leeway as to the positioning of everything. So our screw line is ready to head up to a manifold there. We're also going to add the manifold feeding them. So we've now got our rods going to the screws. Again, I'm going to readjust these afterwards. We'll probably bring them to the floor so they're not colliding with anything. This is going to be the spare rods. And I think we'll also bring these down. And now let's quickly do this segment. Because it's a manifold that we're going to use, we don't need to worry about load balancing. What I do need to make sure is that the alternate holes are facing opposite directions. So this is going to be for the rods, this for the screws, rods, screws, rods. I think what I'll actually do, because we've got the clipping here, I'm going to just lift all of this up and run the splitting line just above, and then we can lower these like so and just connect them up. Nice and simple. I know it's very compact when we're building underneath, but I did want to show you how to do this for future reference, but we will probably try and keep it above in future builds just for the ease of you guys so that you can see everything top down. Anyway, I am now going to, oh, we haven't done that yet. I am now going to reroute the limestone and the copper, and then after that we'll turn it all on and see it running, hopefully smoothly. And the facility is starting to turn on. So I'm just going to clean it up now. I'm just going to do a little bit of decoration while we wait. We're going to do the same thing as we normally do, just add a little bit of walling around the outside. We're not going to worry about enclosing anything, but perhaps if you'd like me to do a video specifically on design in this guided playthrough where we just sort out all of these open builds, then let me know in the comments and perhaps we'll do that soon. And here we are, it is finally running. I must admit I forgot to connect some of the iron rod constructors up, so everything's still warming up, but everything is producing. So at this point, let's quickly go over what we have for the motor layout here. And first of all, starting in the bottom left-hand section, we have our 4 smelters producing iron ingots at 375%, which are going on to 7.5 constructors, or the equivalent of, which are producing the iron rods. Just over half of those are going to become screws in the 6 constructors above that, with one of them overclocked to 125%. And then all of those screws and the excess rods are being sent up to the top set of assemblers to produce the rotors. They're still warming up because we didn't have enough iron rods going through. To the right of this, in the very bottom, we have our copper production, which is 3 smelters producing the copper ingots at 333% clock speed, which are then going up to a wire constructor array, which is splitting 100 wire to the left and right hand side. The left is going straight to the assemblers to produce the stators, and the right section is going across to produce the cable in the 2 constructors to the right of that, which are then going off to the automated wiring assembler, joining up with 2.5 stators per minute. So that is the first stator assembler on the right hand side of the 3 to the left of that. And then above that we have the motor assembler, which will be producing 5 motors per minute from the 10 stators and 10 rotors that we're now producing. And the other thing that I should mention is that in the very bottom we have that one foundry that's producing the steel pipes. So we have that overclocked to 125% going to the 2 constructors, producing a total of 37.5 pipes per minute, which are then going over to the stator assemblers that we've just spoken about. All in all, it's running, it's pretty clear. I do love using logistic flaws. It's a little bit more difficult to show off in a video like this because it's cramped underneath. I mean, it's not that cramped. It's just difficult to show off because there's not that much space to give you an overview. But I did want to show you how open your factories can be by using these logistic flaws, which may be something that you want to replicate in your future builds. But for now, we need to look at the space elevator parts. Now we have enough smart plating, but when it comes to, I think it's the versatile framework and also the automated wiring, we need 1000 versatile framework and 100 automated wiring. And you can see we have 33 wire and only 530 for versatile framework. So we need to speed this up somehow. And the way that we're going to do that is by unlocking the power of the Somersloop. So we'll head back to our starter factory. And if I remember rightly, we have some Somersloop. We do not have any Somersloop, not so good. So we do have the fluctuators because I've been building them for the depots. Did we research it? We did. Okay, so that's where it's gone. So we are now looking at the Somersloop analysis segment of the MAM tree. We've already researched one of these. We're going to research alien energy harnessing. And from here, we now have access to the power augmenter and the production amplifier. Now, I don't want you to worry too much about these circuit boards or here the computers. The computers we can find from crash sites should we wish, but we're not going to worry about this just yet. The circuit boards we're going to have to find at crash sites as well. So we're going to go on a little hunt, and we also want to find, hopefully, 3 Somersloop. That is our intention, and we can now scan it with this. So if we hold left mouse click, we can select Somersloop and we can go out and find the Somersloop that we need. So I'm going to go exploring really quickly. We're going to try and find some Somersloop. I know there's one over here somewhere, and I think there's some more down the coast. So I'm going to quickly go and do that. I'll show you the locations of them as I find them, and then we will return to the factory. You can actually see the Somersloop from here if we zoom in. I hope it's there. I don't think I removed it. So we'll just head over there and hopefully it is still there. Yeah. Sweet. So it's starting to determine where the Somersloop is. Obviously, we know where this one is, so it's not too big a thing. There's no other Somersloop available nearby, so I'm going to have to explore a little bit further. Not really what I wanted to do, but ooh. We've got a little parkour challenge. Would help if I had Blade Runners. Remind me for us to unlock them in the next episode. Oh, this is getting ridiculous. Of course, the easy way around this, before I get too far ahead of myself, would be to build ourselves a foundation and then an industrial storage container. And we can just continue building up until we're at the right height, jump across and grab it. So now that we have our first Somersloop, we're going to need at least 2 more because we need to use it for research, and we also need 2 more for what we want to do. So I'm going to continue exploring, and remember, whilst you're exploring, do collect any Mercer spheres that you find or any slugs as well, because they're going to be really useful. And here is our next one. It's just a little bit further along. Let's find another. We have another Somersloop along here, but it looks like this is a Mercer Sphere, so we'll grab that. Oh, I think it might be over by those mushrooms. Yeah, I can see it now. Oh no. Is that? Oh, do I have my? I do have my chainsaw. Whew. There we go. So that is the 3. I'm going to head back to base now. We'll try and get some more Somersloop at another point. All right. So rather than heading all the way back, we're just going to do it here. There are 2 things that I wanted to oh no, I need circuit boards. Right. I'll be right back.
A few moments later.
Aha! We have finally found the circuit boards that we need for this. I think we've got enough now, unless it was 100. Yeah, fantastic. So we'll get back to base, we'll produce these, and then we should be able to get started with the production amplification. And what do you know, we've also found some more. So if you want to find some circuit boards, you can find some over here, and also the others are over there. And I am making my way back up to here. Okay, let's quickly build these. We're going to need 4 more, but we have still got the reanimated sand being sent to the dimensional depot. So it's just going to take a few moments more for us to get that. Afterwards, we can research the 3 short. I might be here a while. And finally, we can research the alien technology power or production amplifier. So that's the one that we need. And now from here, instead of using power shards, what we can do, if I just grab a constructor and connect it to the power network, we go to, let's produce power shards. I think we've got 18 blue power slugs that we've managed to find. Well, when we produce them, you'll see that we produce 1 power shard. However, we now have an output multiplier, and depending on the machine, we can add a Somersloop, and what that will do is magically double the amount of output this constructor produces. So here we're producing 2 power shards instead of 1 per power slug that we add in. The only difference is this has quadrupled the power consumption for this. So it's not something that we want to use for everything. However, we can use it at the end of our production lines in order to boost our production for particular items. So for example, if we go around to these assemblers, we can double the production of these by adding these in. We do have to be careful with our power because we are now right at the top of our max consumption. In fact, we're just peaking it. But obviously we do have capacity from the resources that we harvested earlier when we sent that to the biomass burners. So for the time being, we are slightly over our consumption. Actually, no, we're not. Our production's 1,800 and our consumption's 1,600. So we're going to leave that, and hopefully, given a bit of time, we will have enough. Oh, we've already got enough of these, so we can actually turn that off. But we will let the versatile framework assembler run for the time being, and hopefully within a few short minutes, we will have enough automated wiring. 5 per minute, so we're going to have to wait a bit of time for the other 300. But now that we are amplifying everything that we have, I'm going to go back to our factory and get the resources we need to build the space elevator. And then once that's done, we'll be able to send the space elevator parts off, providing we've got that 1,000 versatile framework, and it will open up our save to having things like trains unlocked, Mark IV belts, and a whole lot more. This is where the game really starts to expand, and we'll be spending a lot more time on it. But before we play around with the new stuff that we'll be unlocking, I do want to cover expanded power infrastructure and hypertubes, as well as the quartz production. I meant to do that in this episode, but we haven't had time. So we'll do that as well, and then we'll move on to the new phase 2 stuff. But of course, we do need to sort out that, send it off. So let's grab the resources and we'll leave it there for this one. Okay, so we have our space elevator placed. We will delete this afterwards. We have our, we're short of 50, typical. We've got our 100 automated wiring. We're still waiting on the versatile framework. That's going to take another 5-10 minutes or so. But what we can do, thinking about it, I have it on, I do. I had the space elevator parts in the depot, which I say not to do, but it actually helped us out in that circumstance. So I'm going to wait for the versatile framework now, and then we'll send that off and just have a quick look as to what we've unlocked. All right, it should be about time now. So let's just grab what we have here. Oh, fantastic. Literally just about time. So we've got 1012, we can send them back, and we will head over to the space elevator and we can now send it off. Fantastic. So we're going to load this, and this is going to unlock the construction dock for us. And off it goes. Beautiful. And so with tier 5 unlocked, we have the jetpack oil processing logistics Mark IV, which has the conveyor belts, fluid packaging, petroleum power. This is going to be a big one for us given that we are getting close to our max capacity. And also we have industrial manufacturing, unlocking the manufacturer, the monorail technology, which is where our logistics are going to open up. And I'm looking forward to talking about how we can set up an efficient train line. And we also have our signals, pipeline engineering, which allows the Mark II pipes, though we don't tend to use them that much because they've been buggy in the past. And also the Mark II blueprint, which is slightly larger, but will be really useful when it comes to our bigger builds. So we've got a lot to look forward to in the upcoming episodes, but we are going to leave it there for today, guys. I hope you have found this video useful. If you have, let me know what you've most enjoyed about this episode in the comments below, and let me know what you're most looking forward to in the future episodes now that we've unlocked the next phase. But special thanks, as always, goes to all of our amazing supporters on Patreon, most notably our Lunar Eclipse patrons, Five Lester Calamity, Ben and Star, and our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Jenny. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.